So, what does it really mean to be a professional? It's not just about having a certain skill set or a fancy title. At its very core, it's about trust. Professional ethics? Well, that's the foundation of that trust. It's not just a set of rules to follow, it's more like a guide to doing the right thing, especially when no one is watching. But what happens when that trust is completely shattered on a massive scale? We've seen it happen time and time again, and the consequences, they ripple through the entire economy and really start to erode public confidence.
I mean, think about the sudden collapse of British home stores back in 2016, a household name that just vanished. It left 11,000 people without jobs and blew a £571 million hole in its pension fund. Just think about that. Thousands of people's retirement suddenly at risk.
Or how about the failure of the construction giant Carillion in 2018? That was another one that sent massive shockwaves through both the public and private sectors, putting crucial services like schools and hospitals in jeopardy. And it isn't just about companies going under. In 2017, the iconic engineering firm Rolls-Royce had to pay a staggering £671 million fine. Why? For engaging in bribery to win export contracts. All of these events completely shook public confidence, and they all bring up this same basic question. How on earth does this happen? Well, at their heart, every single one of these is a failure of professional ethics. Okay, so what's the antidote to all of this? It's a really powerful ideal that sits at the very heart of being a professional, this idea of acting in the public interest. All right, let's get into this. The International Federation of Accountants defines public interest as the collective well-being of the community. So in simple terms, it just means making decisions that are good for society as a whole, not just for one client or a single shareholder, or for that matter, yourself. But who exactly is this public? It's not some vague, abstract idea. We're talking about real people and real institutions, clients, governments, employers and employees, investors. And it's also the wider community that relies on professionals to keep the economy running fairly and smoothly. And this is what happens when that duty is ignored. If we go back to that BHS case for a second, one of the directors was disqualified after it came out he'd wrongfully diverted over £1 million and couldn't even produce proper accounting records. It was a complete failure to serve the interests of anyone but himself. So, if the public interest is our North Star, how do professionals actually navigate towards it? Well, they have a playbook, a professional code of ethics. This is a great way to visualize it. Think of the public interest being held up by three absolutely essential pillars: a strong code of ethics, a really clear process for handling conflicts of interest, and a solid commitment to fighting things like fraud, bribery, and corruption. Together, they create a whole system. Now, at the heart of that code are 5 principles that are totally non-negotiable. It all starts with integrity and objectivity, which basically means be honest and don't let your judgment get clouded. Then you've got professional competence and confidentiality, do your job well and respect people's privacy. And finally, professional behavior, which means follow the law and don't do anything to harm the reputation of your entire profession. But of course, knowing the principles is one thing. Applying them in the real world, that means you have to navigate a pretty tricky obstacle course of what we call ethical threats. Yeah, these threats usually fall into 5 main buckets. You've got self-interest, which is that what's in it for me kind of threat. Self-review, that's like having to grade your own homework. There's advocacy, where you're pushing a client's case so hard you can't be objective anymore. Familiarity is when you get a little too close to someone to make a tough but necessary call. And then there's intimidation, when you're pressured or even threatened into looking the other way. So, what do you do when you run into one of these? Well, thankfully, there's a clear process to follow. First, you identify and evaluate the threat. If it looks like a real risk, you put safeguards in place to reduce it. And if that risk still isn't at an acceptable level, you have to be ready to just decline the work or even stop it altogether. It's a structured way to make sure you make the right call. All right, let's see how this all comes together in the real world. We can do that by looking at some organizations that really try to bake these principles right into their DNA. Take the cosmetics company Lush, for example. Their ethical charter isn't just some document collecting dust on a shelf, it's a public promise. This quote shows they see the responsibility as something bigger than just their own business. They actively campaign for change across their entire industry. Now that is a powerful example of responsible leadership. And hey, it's not just about consumer brands. In the super cutthroat world of professional football, FC Bayern Munich is actually famous for its solidarity. They'll play friendly matches and even give financial help to smaller clubs that are struggling. They get that creating public value means making sure the entire ecosystem is healthy. But while some organizations choose to act with solidarity, the reality in many places is a constant uphill battle against corruption. And we have to be realistic about the challenges out there. This UN report from Nigeria shows the stark reality of corruption. You can see on this chart that officials like police and tax officers report the highest rates of bribery. And professionals are often on the front lines, facing enormous pressure to either participate in these practices or just ignore them. And get this, one statistic from that report is just absolutely shocking. The percentage of people who admitted to using bribery just to get a public sector job had doubled between 2016 and 2019. That shows you the corrosive impact of ethical failure right there. So how do organizations even begin to build a defense? Well, it takes a whole system of best practices. It has to start with commitment from the very top and a really thorough risk assessment. After that, it's all about due diligence, clear communication, and constantly monitoring your controls. It's truly a non-stop process of being vigilant. So, at the end of the day, where does all this leave us? Professional ethics? It isn't about memorizing rules from a book. It's a mindset. And maybe it can all be boiled down to this simple but incredibly powerful set of questions from Tucker's model, which you can use for pretty much any decision. Is it profitable? Okay, but then, is it legal? Is it fair? And the final and most important question of all, is it right? Answering that last one, honestly, that's what truly defines a professional.